All right, look, on my channel, we get straight to the content. So listen, I'm in the car vibing. If you're watching this video right now, it's because you know Marc Lamont Hill and QueenzFlip almost got into a video. I'm looking rough right now. I need a haircut, but I've been chilling. All right. So look, watching the episode, QueenzFlip is doing his thing. Marc Lamont Hill is doing his thing. An argument ensues, right? If you've been watching my content, and there's some other independent creators that cover the Joe Buddens podcast, like mainly the main person I listen to is Danny from the Stop, right? So Danny from the Stop, I don't know how, cause shout out to Danny from the Stop. He does some shit I don't like, but you gotta give respect where respect is due. Somehow, Danny from the Stop has a chokehold on the Joe Buddens podcast mentality, right? So I'm gonna sum it up real quick because, like I said, if you tune in this channel, I'm just giving my opinion. You know what happened. QueenzFlip was right and QueenzFlip was wrong. Marc Lamont Hill was right and Marc Lamont Hill was wrong. Now, I know a lot of y'all not gonna like fence sitters, but sometimes shit is 50-50. Now, granted, if you're familiar with my content, I've been saying I'm tired of QueenzFlip acting tough. I don't know why, and maybe this is a New York thing because I see a lot of this shit come out of New York. You know what I mean? I don't know why they act so tough when they not that tough. You know what I mean? Like, just because you've been in fights or a lot of fights don't mean you tough. It might mean you more annoying than tough. QueenzFlip is an annoying fucking guy. Even now that Mona's on the podcast, and I love Mona on the podcast. I'm gonna do a video about Mona being on the podcast. But like, even how he jokes with Mona, QueenzFlip has like a childish ass sense of humor, and he's a fucking annoying guy. And he has had disagreements with Ish, where Ish had to tell him like, yo, you not the toughest dude in the room. You not the most gangster nigga in the room. QueenzFlip has this narrative of like, it's like his responses, and I understand, like, listen, I could be emotional and want to crash out, fuck somebody up, but like, QueenzFlip has these irrational emotions when he has an outburst and he just want to argue and like talk down to people like he the only person from the hood, and he's not fucking tough. I'm gonna be tired of him, between him and Ish, and I fuck with Ish, between him and Ish and they hood stories. Joe does it too. It's like, yo, dude, y'all are not that fucking hood. Y'all not that fucking ghetto. Y'all not that fucking tough. Do the podcast, entertain us, and that's it. Stop trying to beat us over the head with this extra stuff, right? So the main reason why Marc Lamont Hill, and I'm going to go back to why QueenzFlip was right. I said why he was wrong because I'm tired of his fat ass acting tough. This is why Marc Lamont Hill was right. Well, if I'm telling you QueenzFlip why he was wrong, then that's why Marc Lamont Hill was right. He got a right to like stand up to Flip and say, no, bro, you're not talking to me like that. Now, granted, Flip said you on some sucker shit. I'm under the belief, I don't know about y'all, it's different opinions, it's cool. If QueenzFlip is saying he doing some sucker shit, I don't internalize that as calling a person a sucker. But Marc Lamont Hill, I guess that's a trigger for him. If you're familiar with my content, I'm not trying to disrespect nobody. Y'all know I'm a regular person. I ain't uploading in 11 days. I was slacking. I'm stressed out at work. But listen, I ain't uploading in 11 days. But if y'all familiar with my content, y'all know how I feel about Marc Lamont Hill. I think it's funny that Marc Lamont Hill's trigger is someone calling him a sucker or thinking he's a sucker. Marc Lamont Hill kind of is a sucker, though. I ain't gonna lie to you. When you listen to his stances on the podcast and how he goes about things, even when he went on Piers Morgan, he do sucker shit. And I personally think he's a sucker. I don't like how, like, sometimes when you being like, all right, so I don't want to say Marc Lamont Hill has a pro-black ideology, but sometimes he's fighting for so many causes. How can he really dedicate himself for one cause? He fighting for trans rights. He fighting for women rights. He fighting for gay rights. He fighting for black women rights. He fight for black incarceration. He fighting for black men in general. He's fighting too many fights, so he's spread thin. So a lot of times when he gonna, let's say he could have a real pro-black male perspective on the topic, he's not going to have it because he got to make sure he don't offend the gay people and the trans people and the women. He's just, that sucker shit to be like, nigga, pick something and stand on it. He can't really stand on one thing. He got to stand on 64 things, right? So I think that's funny that that's his trigger, because I think he's a sucker. I don't think he be on some sucker shit. I think he's a sucker. I know he like to, I ain't gonna say he like to brag, and this ain't no disrespect to Marc Lamont Hill. I know he like to say how he from Philly and stuff like that, and like he from the hood and shit like that. Yo, it's a difference between being from the hood and like, I got something on my lip. It's a difference between being in the hood and being like really from the hood. Like, you lived in the hood, Marc Lamont Hill. You was not hood. You not probably, niggas didn't give a fuck about you in the hood. No one was knocking on your door for you to play football with them or play basketball or slap box. Nigga, no. You was watching kids play from the step. I know Philly niggas like you. They be from a crazy ass street like Diamond Street, but nigga, you was in the house with it. Niggas ain't trying to hear it like that. You ain't really get outside like that till you was like 17, bro. So, like I said, Marc Lamont Hill was right to have an attitude with Flip, because Flip act too tough. But it's crazy because, like, when you listen to, like, these educational people, right? Not even educational people. So I'll talk about, like, I follow some of these racist niggas. Like, not racist niggas, but I call everybody niggas, but racist ass white people like Nick Fuentes, Dave Smith. So because I follow them because I believe in understanding how the enemy thinks, right? So when they talk about black people, they talk about being over emotional and listen, I'm gonna give y'all my perspective. I do understand to a certain extent you need to be stoic, but I also find it to be true, you can be emotional, because like emotion can lead to positive things in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Emotion could lead to the best artistry. Emotion could lead to you like, you know what, I'm gonna pick myself up and I'm gonna fight for my beliefs. Like, so no, it's not like, I don't believe in you being over emotional, crashing out type shit. But there's nothing wrong with emotional. But a lot of like the racist white spaces, they'll say, oh, black people are over emotional, low IQ, it's like shit like that. So it's crazy for a dude like Marc Lamont Hill, who is aware of shit like that, because he also believes in the same thing. Like, this is the only thing we agree on. He believes in listening to the enemy and following the enemy, so you know how they think. So he knows that he's considered like an educated black person in the space. And truth be told, he's an educated person in general, but you gotta say black person because they kind of categorize that. But he's an educated black man and he's an educated man in general. So for him to be over emotional in camera, it's just like, yo, Marc Lamont Hill, even if you felt those ways to Flip, you should have handled it a different way, because people look at you as a representation, even though I disagree. I'm not saying Marc Lamont Hill is a piece of shit, but I'm saying he don't represent men because he don't represent me with his ideologies. But like, you're feeding into the racist stereotype by arguing with another black man, even though QueenzFlip is not black, he's Caribbean. And when you hear them talk about black topics, like black American topics, a lot of times Flip is lost because he's actually not black. But anyway, I just didn't like to see a person that is coveted in the black community and in multiple communities. Like Marc Lamont Hill has been on CNN, he's been on Piers Morgan. I didn't like seeing him get over emotional and feed into that stereotype. You know what I mean? Because they look at him as like a good representation, and he didn't represent himself right. Even though I do also agree, when you around a man like Flip, you gotta let them know, yo, you not no alpha. QueenzFlip has a fake alpha mentality. Y'all know about these Andrew Tate and all these motherfuckers. These motherfuckers not really alphas. Because when there's real alphas in the room, they can't act like that. So QueenzFlip try to hide his shit between jokes and calling people brother. I'm talking to men. Yo, if you ain't grow up with a nigga, stop calling him your brother unless y'all really put in some pain or went through some pain together. No diddy. Stop calling motherfuckers your brother. Like, but at the end of the day, this is all Joe Buddens' fault. I'm going to tell you why it's Joe Buddens' fault, right? Now, I'm 9 minutes in the video, so I could talk a little bit more loosely, right? Joe Buddens has introduced a lot of quote-unquote nigga shit right? If you black like me, you know what that is. Nigga shit. Like, you just like, yo, that's some nigga shit. Like, let's say it's a bunch of motherfuckers, like, let's say it's some black niggas, they just, like, if you live in Philly, I lived in Philly, the young bulls run into the Wawa, snatch and grab all the shit, like, that's nigga shit. Like, we ain't gotta act like that. Joe Buddens has introduced a lot of nigga shit to the podcast. Nigga shit number one, and this is the main one. Yo, I don't give a fuck who makes what and whose contract is this and whose contract is that. I listen to a lot of podcasts. It's only the Joe Buddens podcast that talk about how much money niggas is making. Anytime a motherfucker is counting another motherfucker's pockets and worried about how much they making, that's nigga shit. That's ghetto culture bullshit. So when I say nigga shit, I'm talking about ghetto culture. I'm not talking about hood culture. Hood and ghetto is different to me. That's nigga shit, right? So you got Jay Wan on the podcast. First of all, stop putting fucking Jay Wan on the fucking podcast, Joe. Listen, I love Joe Buddens. I've been a fan of Joe Buddens my whole life, right? Like, I always looked at him as a representation of Jersey. Even though now that he older, he always screaming out New York and barely New Jersey. Like, but anyway, right? No one wants Jay Wan on the podcast. This nigga Jay Wan caused the argument, but I can't even blame Jay Wan because you introduced this fucking culture of talking about who got the most money, who don't got the most money, who should be on the podcast. Like, you leave all the podcasters on the show in like a loop, like, oh, all right, this month I'm arguing about my contract. I'm arguing about should I be here. I'm arguing about this. I'm arguing about that. Like, it's a fucking mess. Joe Buddens is one of the most talented entertainers I ever, like, he's a talented entertainer. The podcast is talented. We don't need to hear about fucking contracts, bro. We don't want Jay Wan on the show. Jay Wan is like the young bull version of Ish, and I fuck with Ish. Jay Wan is a nigga that think he's just too fucking cool. He think he too fucking thorough. And if you've been following it, come to find out, Jadakiss not even from the hood like that. Y'all remember when Jadakiss was on the Joe Budden podcast? He not even from the hood. I'm sure he got hood connections, but he not no street nigga like that. And his son just carry it like he tough, like he know it all. Get Jay Wan off the fucking podcast. This young bull not thorough at all. Right? But the only reason why Jay Wan could bring that question up is because Joe Buddens allows it. You know why Joe Budden allows it? Because he feeds into these independent fucking creators too much. Exhibit A. I'm going to use Exhibit A and Exhibit A only. Danny from the motherfucking Stop, man. Now, I've been following Danny from the Stop for a long time, right? I love Danny from the Stop's content, right? Danny from the Stop is fucking toxic as hell when it comes to not Joe Buddens. He can be toxic towards Joe Buddens. He's very toxic towards the cast members on the Joe Buddens podcast, right? Even though I'm going to give Danny credit because he was about to go in on Ish, if you're familiar with his content, and he was really starting to get in Ish video, in Ish business, and he was going to drop a video, and then he stopped it. I really did respect Danny doing that. Like, he was taking it too personal, and Ish don't really bother nobody. Like, he don't be in these spaces. But you know who be on these spaces? And when I say spaces, if you're not familiar, Twitter spaces, right? So they create rooms. Joe Budden goes in these rooms. Danny from the Stop is one of the biggest Joe Budden's independent creators. Like, he covered the Joe Budden podcast. He covers other shit. And one time he talked to Joe and said that he mainly covers the Joe Budden podcast. I don't know why Danny did that, but anyway. Danny from the Stop has a chokehold on Joe Buddens. Because Danny from the Stop will make videos. First of all, Danny from the Stop is a regular person. He's doing really well as an independent content creator, right? I don't even understand why Joe Budden ever addressed him, even paid attention to him. Yo, you're Joe fucking Buddens. Why are you worried about Danny from the Stop? From Nevertheless. All right. He going to Danny shit. He going in the rooms with Danny. He's debating Danny from the Stop. How fucking egotistical do you have to be that you are Joe Buddens doing your thing and you got to go debate with an independent content creator. Joe Buddens can be a fucking idiot sometimes, and I love bro. He's a fucking dumbass, right? So basically, Danny from the Stop creates narratives, and then Joe Buddens goes in these spaces and addresses the narratives. But now Marc Lamont Hill, so you got like, they do this thing on the podcast, fucking Potter of the Month. That started by the Joe Buddens community, not Joe Buddens. But arguments and debates about it spills online, spills onto the podcast, and now they're all arguing about Potter of the Month. Yo, y'all are letting the fans create a narrative. And it's not y'all, it's Joe Buddens. Joe Buddens let his Joe Budden community have a chokehold on his content. The only other person I've seen do some stupid shit like that is Adam22. Adam22 lets his community have a chokehold on the show. This is fucking dumb. So, if you're familiar and you're a dork like me and you watch a lot of Joe Buddens podcasts, you'll know that Joe Buddens will have a problem with Ish doing content with Mandy or chilling with Mandy, right? Chilling with the ops type shit, right? Joe Buddens has had over 9,000 conversations. I might be exaggerating. He has had like 9,000 conversations with Danny from the Stop. After Danny from the Stop has clowned Flip, Melissa Ford, Ish, Ice, J1. He don't really clown Marc Lamont Hill, but if you listen to Danny from the Stop, he not really in a culture like that. So he likes that nerdy side of Marc Lamont Hill type shit. You know what I mean? No disrespect, because like I said, I fuck with Danny from the Stop, but you could tell he not really like urban like that. Like he's not really familiar with urban culture type shit. And this is the person, Joe. So Joe will say, and he has trolled Ish about hanging with Mandy. Joe Buddens has had so many conversations with Danny from the Stop, and Danny has kicked motherfuckers' backs in on the podcast. Danny has plenty of videos talking about how much people make, who should be off the podcast. And Joe brings those toxic ass comments and videos to the podcast. And then he wonder why the people on the podcast ready to fight. Danny from the Stop has been kicking QueenzFlip back in for mad long at this point. And he has been uplifting Marc Lamont Hill's voice and how he feels about Marc Lamont Hill in comparison to QueenzFlip. You know what I mean? And every time Joe Budden gets a chance, he's on there fucking talking to fucking Danny from the Stop. As a fan, and like I said, I don't fuck with that Twitter community spaces. It's all clout chasing type shit. Danny, I'm not calling him a clout chaser because like I said, he got a good channel. He making bread off that. He doing his thing. But all of this, a lot of that podcast controversy and podcast animosity towards each other comes from Joe Buddens being a fucking dumbass and being in Twitter spaces. Now, it's a way to communicate with the fans without having to communicate with the fans where you really got to hear their opinions and ideology. Danny from the Stop, he has his own, what is it called? Whatever. He got his own shit. He answered the comments and shit like that. You don't got to be in Twitter spaces. Danny from the Stop don't have a Twitter spaces where he talked to the fans of the podcast, like of his content. He'll answer you on his videos and shit like that. He's not saying, all right, y'all, all y'all Danny from the Stop. Like, he got his own communities. But he's not on there asking for opinions on the content. Joe Buddens is on Twitter spaces really getting information and trying to gather what people want from Twitter spaces. Twitter spaces is one fucking demographic. I'm a part of the community, and it's another, and I used to be a part of the community that just listened and didn't say shit. I just made videos on some freestyle shit. My fault, my speech slur. I'm drinking real early in the morning. It's my stepbrother's birthday. Happy B-Day. But like, he is letting narratives from Twitter spaces make his castmates uncomfortable. This is crazy. This is why Joe Buddens can never reach the levels of Joe Rogan or Shannon Sharp. He can because he's dope. He can't because he's a fucking egomaniac. Joe, why are you interacting with Danny from the Stop, bro? Danny from the Stop's main interest is his content. His content is covering your content, but he gives a fuck about his content. He's going to say anything and everything to make the Joe Budden shit more toxic because then he has more content to cover. What the fuck are you doing, Joe? You need to cut this Twitter Spaces shit out. You didn't build the fan base. And Joe Buddens has a big ass fan base. You didn't build the fan base off of Twitter Spaces. But you and Marc Lamont Hill have these stupid ass ideology where y'all want to communicate with the fans on Twitter Spaces. My niggas, most of y'all fucking fans not on Twitter Spaces. Are y'all fucking dumb? I make videos covering the Joe Buddens podcast. Nigga, I'm never going on Twitter Spaces. A bunch of bitches on there trying to get fucked and a bunch of niggas on there trying to get cool points. Get the fuck out of here, yo. This is all Joe Budden's fault. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, bro. I'm gonna do another video on Mona because I fuck with Mona. She remind me of one of my family members. You know what I'm saying? And she's good because she could call people out on their bullshit. I'm fucking with Mona on the podcast. Like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. I'm out.